Hello, my name is Eric Johnson, and in this case study, we'll be analyzing the Blue Sky Project case study. Just to set the stage, Ahmet Green hired Garth Hudson to be the Information Services Director at Eastern Oceanography Institute and is managing a project called Blue Sky. One of his staff members, Tom Jackson, performed well and displayed leadership among this team, while Hudson took care of much detailed work behind the scenes and with the vendor. Soon, Hudson was confronted with a shocking conversation with Green, in which Hudson now has the opportunity to make the case why his job should be saved when top management wants to retain Jackson instead. So what options are there for possible actions here? Well, Green has a decision to make, and it won't be an easy one. One possible action to take is to fire Hudson. The pros of this action, from Green's perspective, are Jackson being retained and top management being appeased. The cons include losing an experienced and highly skilled manager, another period of instability while a new leader is hired, and drama among the staff who might start choosing sides. Another action is firing Jackson. The pros with this decision are retaining a highly skilled and experienced project manager, Hudson, who happens to be an alumnus, and maintaining a greater level of stability within the department. The cons are going against the consensus of top management, which would not be favorable to Green's job, and losing someone who now appears to be a promising asset to the organization. A third option to pursue is retaining both Hudson and Jackson while reducing staff elsewhere. This is ideal. The pros include retaining both Hudson, the most skilled and knowledgeable IT expert, and Jackson, who top management has identified as essential. The only con is having to come up with an outside-the-box solution and then gaining the buy-in of top management. So if I were Hudson, how would I respond to Green? Well, at the end of the case study, it's really unclear if Green feels the same way as top management. If I were Hudson, I would first recap ways in which my expertise and diligent work, albeit behind the scenes for the most part, led to the success of the Blue Sky project. I would then discuss ways I have reflected on the project and identified areas in which I can learn from my mistakes and grow as a project manager. First and foremost will be ways in which I will be a better leader as a result of what I learned. There's an argument to be made that Jackson, though he performed well and has a gift for leadership, is not necessarily indispensable to this department. However, I would not take this route of convincing Green that Jackson should be fired. I would make the case that Jackson is an excellent worker and alternate routes should be analyzed. For instance, perhaps Grant Hill, the third person named in the case study, is not as needed as management believes he is. Are there any others involved in the research library who could take on his responsibilities? Or maybe perhaps Jackson could be reassigned to a different department, or even promoted to a leadership position elsewhere in the organization if top management is so keen on him. So what mistakes did Hudson make? The Blue Sky project reveals a number of mistakes here. While clearly a gifted technician and effective manager, he missed out on obvious ways to be a more effective leader. This is most visibly seen by his desire to remain glued to his work in his office rather than taking any time to come out and converse with his staff. He could have learned valuable information from them that could help his leadership of the project, and his staff would see him more as a leader who cares about the team. Another mistake was not having a man-to-man conversation with Jackson upon learning Jackson thought he deserved the director position. This likely would have been awkward, but Hudson may have been able to establish an open line of communication with one of his most effective employees. Perhaps then Jackson may have been willing to professionally let Hudson know what the staff is thinking when the tensions rose later in the project. Hudson did make mistakes, but ones he can definitely learn from. So what are the lessons to be learned from this case? Well, it's difficult to really know where to start, quite frankly, with all the lessons to be learned. But I would say the most important lesson would simply be how crucial it is to know your strengths and weaknesses. Hudson seems to be a genuinely effective manager, but lacks leadership qualities. This is not necessarily a bad thing, as Hudson's experience, in-depth knowledge, and skill level all lend themselves well to the type of work he's doing. Jackson clearly demonstrates more leadership qualities, and he even is humble enough to know his role and not publicly speak against Hudson when he has the opportunity to do so. Even though Hudson is a more effective manager, he can still lead the department and the project effectively. Another lesson is the importance of communication. Early in his new position, and upon learning Jackson wanted the director role, he should have had a one-on-one conversation with Jackson, as we mentioned earlier. He could gain Jackson's buy-in by expressing how valuable he sees Jackson is to the department, and asking Jackson questions about the department and even himself. Since Hudson is Jackson's superior, Hudson could ask questions about Jackson's career aspirations and how he wants to help him achieve those goals. Showing this interest and talking to Jackson about their roles would have gone a long way toward Hudson gaining Jackson's buy-in and even learning more about Jackson and how he approaches his job. Blue Sky Project case study is a tremendous example of how the interplay of management and leadership dynamics can have a drastic effect on interpersonal relationships and even the overall project outcome.